Yo, what is going on YouTube? We are back with another video. In this video, I'm going to break down why low carbohydrates are holding you back. Now, before we get into the video, I just want to talk about what I mean. You've probably heard things like low carb or keto is the best way for fat loss and to optimize your metabolism. Now, it all varies person to person, and you need all of the context. So somebody that's doing low carb that might be training a specific way, or maybe eating carbs on 1 or 2 days of the week, or timing the carbohydrates, or somebody that's doing, more darker starches, less white starches. It's all going to vary. So you need to get all the context before just making general assumptions like low carb is best or high carb is best. What really matters is the overall trend of things on a weekly and then a monthly basis and looking long term. People think that cutting carbs drops fat, which is just simply not the case. Now let's get into the video. Basically this is going to be a short and concise one. I have 6 minutes before I have 16 minutes until my next client call, but 6 minutes and I have to prep for that. I'm going to read a little bit before. And I want to just jump on here because a lot of times people reach out and they're like, oh, I've tried to lose weight. I've tried to tone up my midsection, get my abs to pop. And the low carbs just aren't doing it. I'm trying to cut the carbs out and I'm feeling like nothing's working. Well, here's the thing. You need to understand that when it comes to dropping your carbs, every time you eat carbohydrates, you have a bond of water that also attaches with it, right? So when you're eating carbs, you're also getting a lot of water to fill up your muscles, right? And sometimes, oftentimes more than not, it stores in your midsection. So if you ever eat carbs right before a workout, the reason it's so beneficial is all of the water and the glycogen, which is what the carb breaks down into, is going to be energy, right? And that's going to fill your muscle cells. So your biceps, your triceps, your shoulders, your quads, they might pump up and look bigger for the time being, but that's just because they're filled with A, the glycogen, and B, the water. But what happens when you do the reverse and you remove the carbs is you cut all the water weight. So you get super lean, right? Which is great. And then your abs start to pop and it happens for like 4 or 5 days. You might have ever had alcohol and like maybe went on a bender and drank a bunch of alcohol. The next day felt like your six pack was showing more. The reason for that is you're just way more dehydrated because all the water weight's gone. Now the muscle is there, right? So it's not always the fat. It's a lot of times water weight. So that's why sometimes people think that cutting carbs leads to fat loss. Really, it leads to dropping water weight and less water retention, which is just basically water stored in those muscle cells, right? And sometimes in the adipose area, around the abdominals, right? But here's the tricker. A lot of people think that like just cutting carbs is going to cut their fat, and that's just not how it works. What cuts your fat is you consistently being in a caloric deficit, eating less calories than you burn, and also building enough muscle mass to consistently keep yourself in a state where you're lean, you have your muscles popping, right? And you're burning more calories. The more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you're going to burn at rest, on autopilot, like I like to term it. But just simply by cutting carbs, that does not by any means drop weight. What drops weight is less energy going in than is going out. And I don't even like to talk on things like this too much because it's pretty much common sense and not everybody knows this. But you've probably heard the things like, oh, like calories in versus calories out. It's not that simple. It really isn't. The hormones, the metabolism, the ability for your body to actually break down and derive the nutrients from the food you're eating and send it into your bloodstream to actually use it and partition it as, fuel is what's most important. So if your body is not good at doing any of those things, or if it's not digesting, if you don't have enough fiber in your diet, and you're not actually taking the food and then breaking it down and using those nutrients, that doesn't matter, bro. You could be throwing back 4 protein shakes a day with double scoops of whey protein powder, getting in your 200 grams. But if you're, lactose tolerant, intolerant, right, and you're not digesting and absorbing all of that, and you're probably getting like 50 grams, and you're doing more harm than good. And so, like, that's just something to keep in mind. Like, you actually have to use the fuel. It would be like, for example, this is an analogy here. If you were to drive, I used to drive a Volkswagen. Yes, I know it's a chick car, dude. Let me breathe. I used to drive a Volkswagen Jetta, and it took regular gas. But the model I had, most of the other ones took premium, right? And I remember somebody once saying like, "Oh, doesn't your car take premium?" And it's like, no, mine takes regular, but most of the other models do. Like the sports take that, right? And it would be like, for example, in my condition, if I were to take that car that takes regular gas and just start pumping in, premium, or even worse, man, diesel, like what's going to happen to the engine? How is the car going to operate? Not very well. Is the car going to actually go faster on the highway and operate more efficiently? No. It's probably going to do the worst. It's probably going to break down. Engine's going to overheat. Something's going to go wrong because it's just not meant for that, right? It's the exact same thing, right? So you need to understand that cutting carbs is not what is going to lead to fat loss. What's going to lead to fat loss is less calories than you're burning coming in, or eating a lot of food, but you burning more calories, so you're still in that deficit. Either way you want to look at it, it's the exact same. You're just burning more than you're using. You're burning through the energy you have, right? But the reason people I think that fat loss comes from low carbs or no carbs is because it's just water weight you're dropping. But after like 7 to 12 days of going on a low carb diet or a keto diet, trust me, I've done all these diets. I've noticed that yes, I get super lean in the beginning, but then what happens after is my body adapts. So if you go too far into the low carb zone, then what happens is your body starts, if you're in a low enough carbs or zero carbs, which is, it's really truly hard to get to zero carbs. If you're in a low carb diet though, under a certain amount, it depends. You would have to get blood testing and everything like this. Your body's going to start to tap into ketones and start to use body fat as its primary fuel. And not just body fat, but fats in general. So dietary fats. So whether that be fat coming in through your nutrition or your body fat, whatever one has more available, your body's going to start to use that as fuel, right? But if your body doesn't have enough to work with, then it's going to start to eventually plateau and streamline. And what's going to happen then is instead of actually dropping more water weight because there's very little or none left, your body's going to adapt to that and start tapping into the fat stores until it's eventually okay. We're familiar with this. Let's start looking back at. Let me just turn my timer off. I have like 10 seconds. I'll finish up the video here. But if you're putting a ton of like pressure on yourself to drop your carbs, after some time your body adapts to that. And being in a long enough state with low carbs or no carbs, what happens is your body adjusts, right? It's made to adapt to its environment, and now it's going to start to use fats as its primary fuel source. And so what happens is that expenditure, the calories your body's burning, is actually going to also decrease because it's adjusting. Okay, like we're getting less rapid energy, and carbs are going to be a fast primary source of energy. That's what the body prefers to use. But if it's not coming in, the body's going to adjust and say, okay, we're not getting carbs. So what we need to do is either start tapping into muscle as energy, dietary fat, if we're eating that in our nutrition day to day, or if we don't have muscle, then the body fat. The other thing is too, like your body's going to start to break down muscle tissue. That's going to slow down how many calories you burn. Your body's going to try to conserve and reserve. This is the best way to like describe it physically. It's like, this is what it's trying to do. Hold on to everything, squeeze, right? Like hoard the muscle and the weight you have instead of like being like a current and like pushing it back out. Because the more you have coming in, the more that you have available to burn, right? And so I hope that gives you guys some clarity. But once you get too low on the carb side, what happens is your body also flatlines and adapts. So this is why it's important to know all of the factors that are varied. And this is just like very general sense. I don't like to over complex things. I like to simplify it for you guys. So you want to make sure that your body has the right types of carbs that process and digest well with you, the right types of fats, and the right types of proteins, but also the right amount. And if you can have those down, then you're going to know like what to aim for. But don't just think that eating no or low carbs is going to allow you to drop fat. You might drop some water weight the first week or two, but what's going to eventually happen is your body's going to start to adjust, and it's going to start to just hold the weight from other nutrient sources, other macronutrients, right? Whether that's from protein or from fats. And so it's good for some people to cut carbs, but it's not going to lead to fat gain. It's not going to lead to fat loss. If anything, higher carbs might be better for you because when you have higher carbs, because it's a rapid energy source, your body's going to start to burn more calories. When you're just sitting throughout the day, your body's going to have more energy. When you're doing things like typing on your computer, you're walking, you're lifting weights, all these sorts of things, it's going to have way more energy available, and therefore it's going to burn a lot more. And also carbohydrates, because I said they break down into glycogen, that's also what your muscle is looking for. Glycogen is just a storage source of glucose, which is basically the sugar that your body breaks carbs down into, right? So when you're using those carbohydrates and that energy source as fuel, then when you're in the gym working out, you're going to have way more of that fuel, and that's going to lead to you lifting heavier or building more muscle tissue. So higher carbs in your diet might actually be better for staying leaner because it's going to lead to elevation in the amount of weight you can lift, and that's going to allow you to maintain and gain more muscle. And the more muscle you have, because it's so energy demanding, it allows your body to start to burn more fat. And I should say more calories for those of you guys science nerds out there, because really you're not going to burn fat until you have too low of calories and too high of an energy expenditure where you're burning more, right? Like you can't just tap into fat, you tap into calories. And if you're at maintenance, if you're eating the same amount of food that's going out, right, then you're not going to lose fat. You're just going to be parallel. But if you're burning the number of calories and you're also lifting, your muscle, lifting weights with higher carbs, it's gonna be super helpful. So like the higher carbs might actually be better for you because it's gonna allow you to lift heavier weights, keep yourself leaner, and because the carbs are constantly coming in, the body's gonna flush out a lot more of that carb and retain some water and fill up, the muscle cells with water. And there might be some, more water that you store in your midsection there. But the flip side is true. Whereas if you cut it out too much, then you're going to start to flatline, right? So low carbs do not lead to fat loss. What leads to fat loss is the more calories being burned than consumed and higher amounts of muscle that allow you to burn more calories at rest every single day. So if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below, the comment section, I should say. I could go on and on and on about this, and there's a lot of key things I did not touch on because I generally keep this very surface level, very intro. That is the easiest way for me to put all this together in, about 15, 12 minutes, right? So drop a comment and let me know if this was helpful. If it wasn't, then it's all good, bro. Let me know anyways, and I would love to make a better video for you next time. I'm going to also be breaking down like fats and proteins and whatnot. Personally, at the moment, this happens, like I have different seasons, but personally for me, I am on the lower carb side right now with my own nutrition, but it's not because I'm trying to get leaner. It's truly because I found so many benefits with lower carbohydrates, such as more mental clarity, less brain fog, and it allows me to put my business first and be more optimized when it comes to my brain power and the way I do things. So my focus is more important when I have lower carbs, but as a byproduct on the other side of the seesaw, which is tipping, right, I'm not able to be as lean and muscular as I'd like. But when I get back to that side, when the summer pops back up, oh, I'm jumping my carbs up, bro. Know that. The right types of carbs, though, not just any carbs. So keep this video, maybe save it for your watch later. If you feel it's helpful, then come back to it. I really try to break things down to a simple level because truly, I don't like to use all the science terms. It just like people don't understand all these things, especially when it comes to applying them to your everyday life. Unless you're a trainer, a fitness coach, whatever, for the most part, like you're not going to understand all this. So I want to just give you the bare minimum info that you need. So follow me on Instagram at JStroudFit to hear more about my rants and my longer form content at YouTube, JStroudFit, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for checking out this one.